Welcome back to Trucking with OIDA. Ashley, the American Truck Historical Society is really cool.
Yes.
That's my first statement. If you're not familiar with it, they essentially are honoring, celebrating the trucking industry. They've got a showroom. They've got a Hall of Fame. They recently just had a Hall of Fame induction ceremony for 2025. And we thought, what better time to reach out to them to find out more about ATHS and a Hall of Fame than right now? And we did that. And we are going to be talking in just a second here with Tom Mullen of the American Truck Historical Society. The American Truck Historical Society has obviously been around for a little bit. Can you just kind of talk about, for people who may not be aware of what you all do and what the idea is, can you kind of walk us through the origin story, I suppose, if it were, of the American Truck Historical Society?
I can. So the American Truck Historical Society was founded in 1971, and it was founded by a group of, at the time, gentlemen that owned trucking companies. And in 71, a lot of the companies today were still owned by individuals. So they saw a need to start an organization that could talk about the past history of the trucking industry from the beginning of time up to the 1971. So in 71, they established this. It's a nonprofit. It's a membership-based organization, but mainly their goal is just to preserve the history of trucking, the trucking industry, and its pioneers. So we've maintained that. So we're located in Kansas City, Missouri, and we're in the business park up by the airport here. And so we have a very extensive collection of historical items. Like our library consists of over over 100,000 photos and manuals and just literature about the industry itself. So if a person comes here, you can kind of track how the industry has evolved to where it is today. So to fast forward, in 2021 was our 50th anniversary. We thought it was time to start a Hall of Fame. So the Hall of Fame came about in 2021, just to take that mission statement of preserving the history one step farther by recognizing maybe some of the individuals and corporations that led us to where we are today. So it's really an interesting place here. It's open to the public, and anybody's welcome to come. You don't have to be a member to come and do that. We have a lot of people come here to do research in our library. If you're searching for information about the trucking history or an individual type truck, you would come here and we'd be able to help you do that. We have a full-time staff that assists the people with that.
Is there, you mentioned, being located in Kansas City, Missouri. Is there any other place like this in the U.S.?
No, we are the only Hall of Fame related to the trucking industry in the country. Now, as far as the American Truck Historical Society goes, we have always been in the United States here, but we have over 21,000 members with 90 chapters, and we have a global presence in Australia, Canada. So we have chapters and we have members there. So we have a fairly far-reaching group of people, I guess, to be there to support anybody.
I was joking earlier about the, Mr. President, but when I hear you talk, Tom, it reminds me a little bit of a presidential library in many respects, because as you mentioned there, you've got a full-time staff that is obviously maintaining records, and I would assume doing research and looking into different things and preserving records. That's a big part of what you do as well. What is that process like? Because it strikes me that would be, it sounds like a tall task, just from the outside looking in, because I imagine you're just swimming in photographs and records and all sorts of things. What does that process look like behind the scenes of just organizing all that stuff and trying to figure out how and where it should go?
Well, it's interesting you should say that. Right now, all of our stuff is still pretty much in the material state. We're in the process of digitizing our stuff. Within the next 6 months, we will start down that road. We've actually entered into agreement with Kenworth Trucks. We're going to archive all of their history material there. So with their financial support, it's going to allow us to do that. We've just brought on board a gentleman that's very familiar with archiving And so we'll be doing some with that. Now, obviously, you wouldn't archive everything we have here. So you'd have to categorize what's important and what's not. For example, we have the build sheets. For those who know what build sheets are, if you order a heavy-duty truck from the manufacturer, it tells everything that truck is consisting of component-wise. So only one person would probably ever have an interested in the build sheet there. So there's no reason to archive all of our build sheets, but because just the individual that owns that truck would have the interest in mainly. So it's going to be a major, major undertaking for us. But right now, we're able to do things the old-fashioned way, I guess you could call it. You call here, and Courtney is able to do the research for you. You're welcome to come and do it yourself, or she can do some things for you. And so if you come to our library area, it's just row after row and file cabinet after file cabinet of material. And there's an order to it. It's kind of like if you recall the old Dewey Decimal library system. It's kind of like that at the current state, but we are getting in the process of digitalizing much of this in the near future, starting probably the next 6 months.
You mentioned, Tom, those phone calls. I'm curious, I imagine you get some pretty out there requests at times. Maybe you don't. I'm not quite sure. But what do those phone calls sound like? What are people calling you and looking for typically?
Well, a lot of things people will call, say, for example, if your grandfather was a truck driver, but you really didn't know too much about what your grandfather's work history was or something, where he worked or things like that. So you can submit his name here, and we have, if we have given him an award, ATHS has given out 900 individual awards to people that have just driven their trucks all their lives, just the average working person, that if he's been in the industry for 50 years, then we've more than likely presented him an award. And so you could call, give your grandfather's name. Maybe it's a chance that we did give your grandfather an award, and we would have some history on that. So we get those requests in addition to mainly the request about vehicles. Did Peterbilt build a Model 359 in say, for example, 1950 or not? So we have a lot of those. I don't think they're off the wall requests, but they're just general inquiry requests, I guess.
How often do you have people calling with items that they either want to donate, and kind of what's the process of that?
Well, it kind of goes in spurts. Most of the time, we will get a donation from an estate. Family members, they don't know what to do with this stuff. So fortunately, they reach out to us, and we accept anything that's truck related. We have a small restriction of list. We don't take many hats, things like that. It's more about the history material things. We take those and we preserve that. We keep that here. It'll be here. We can put it on display. We have a lot of display cabinets that have a lot of things. So we get a fair amount of people giving it, but it kind of depends on the estate. Sometimes, unfortunately, you might have 4 or 5 people a month maybe that have passed away that we end up with their collections. A lot of people have collected stuff all their lives and have extensive collections. And so we are mentioned in their estate planning as far as I want the materials to go here. We have a gentleman that in the days gone by, back in the 50s, 60s, a lot of truck drivers wore professional driving uniforms, and they would have a company patch, a sewn patch. We have a gentleman that has a huge collection of patches. And so that's one thing he spoke about, that probably when the time comes, he will bequest that to us, So it's really kind of strange, but we greatly appreciate anything anybody wants to leave to us versus just throwing it away, because once the history's gone, it's gone. So we're very active with keeping that. We have manufacturers that have gone out of business when White Trucks, which was a huge manufacturer of trucks in the Cleveland, Ohio area, when they decided they were going to cease operation, we got their entire engineering records.
Wow.
So we have the drawings, we have everything.
That's cool.
Yes.
It strikes me also, we're talking about just the history of trucking. And again, you're talking about a lot of records and a lot of information, a lot of trucks and a lot of stuff that's out there. Yourself, and you've been involved in this for, I think you said 25 years or so, or whatever it's been. What's your background? How did you get kind of interested in this and kind of fall into the American Truck Historical Society gravitational pull, I guess, as it were?
Well, I was raised in the trucking industry. My father had a fleet of trucks, and so trucks have always just been second nature to me. Along with having a bicycle, I was exposed to trucks, so it was kind of like that. They were toys for my brother and I growing up. We would go to our dad's business and maybe sneak a ride around the block or something like that.
Yeah.
So I went to a truck show in Toledo, Ohio that ATH has had. I'd never heard of the folks. Had gone there and was just blown away. I thought, man, I need to be a part of this. And so I inquired and learned more about them. That we publish our own publication every 6 months. We produce a magazine called The Wheels of Time. And so I became a member just to get the magazine. Well, and then things just evolved to there. I wound up coming on the board of directors and then worked my way through the presidency to the chairman of the board. And we kind of have a little unwritten rule here that once you're the chairman of the board, you're still supposed to give back. Mm-hmm. And so I felt my contribution to giving back was to start the Hall of Fame.
That's really cool. But you never were a working truck driver, it doesn't sound like.
No, I was.
You were? Okay.
I drove professionally for 52 years.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
I think that qualifies.
It does. I could check the box. I've been very fortunate and had very good jobs, and I've logged over 4.5 million accident-free miles.
Wow. And this is a way just to kind of keep involved and stay involved and stay in the industry in a way, it sounds like.
It is. I enjoy this. I still work a little part-time. I work for the professional motorsports teams. Just driving a little bit for those guys, just to keep my skill set going there. But this is a passion. It's really hard to describe. You almost have to come here and see it in person to really understand what takes place here. We're all volunteers here, and we have a fairly large board. There's 35 members on the board of directors here, and they come from all over the country. Some of them have no affiliation in the trucking business at all. They just like it, Yeah. Never driven a truck or anything. So, it's an interesting group of people, without a doubt, and we're just happy to be in Kansas City. We moved from Birmingham, Alabama to Kansas City, bought property here. I'm sitting in one of our offices now and looking out, and we have a large, I don't know if many of your people are from Kansas City, but we're off at Ambassador Drive, which is up at the airport. We have a very large neon sign out here that is the only one. There was only 2 ever produced in the country. And this is a life-size truck. It's up in the air, and it's all neon. It lights up at night. And like I said, there's only one in existence, and we have it here. We moved it when Consolidated Freightways ceased operation. They donated to us. So we have a lot of unusual stuff, but a lot of really neat stuff, too.
Did you mention there, you're doing some work for some professional sports teams?
I do.
Can you talk about it at all? Or, I mean, what exactly are you doing?
I drive the haulers.
Okay.
Yep, drove the haulers for Tony Stewart, for Stewart Haas Racing. Now I work for Ford Performance Motorsports and move some of their vehicles around. It's just, it's about every 6 weeks, just something to do. I'm too young to sit on my porch and watch the grass grow.
Yeah, I understand that for sure. That's really cool. You mentioned some of the items that you have on display there, and you mentioned it kind of in passing there at the end. You've got a lot of stuff there. You've got a lot of trucks, a lot of cool stuff. What is there a particular area or a particular truck or a particular thing that you are drawn to that just kind of speaks to you and you think this is the coolest thing we have in here?
There are some things that are. Once again, to speak about when White Motor Company went out of business, they were based in Cleveland, Ohio, and they started at the turn of the century. So you know how architecture was in the turn of the century. These people were in big brick office buildings and things like that. So we have the brass plaque that probably weighs 500 pounds off the front of their building. So we have that. I mean, that's kind of cool that we have the actual plaque there where that corporation come from. We have that. We have the big neon sign out here. Once again, it's from Motor Cargo that was bought out by Consolidated Freightways. We double-sided it there. One side's Motor Cargo, all in neon. The other side is Consolidated Freightway, all in neon. So we have that. I like the unusual things. There was a gentleman that invented the suspension systems for trucks. His name was Hickman. And so we have a model display that's made out of metal and it's what he applied the patents for. So this had gone to Washington, D.C., for him to display what he was trying to invent. And so the patents were granted to the gentleman. So we have I guess it's called like a prototype.
Mm-hmm.
And to have that, which it really should belong in the Smithsonian, but that came to his family. He wanted ATHS to have that. So those things intrigued me because of the one-ofs. Now, like I said, we probably have over 500 model toy trucks, and they're all good. It's fun to look at those and things, but I like the unusual, and we have some unusual things here.
Yeah, that's great.
What's it like to, when you're there and people are coming to visit? I assume people who are familiar with trucking are probably most of the visitors, but people even who aren't, what is that like to see their reaction in seeing this collection?
It's funny you should say that. We're probably the best kept secret, and that's our fault. We don't do very well promoting ourselves. Yesterday, as an example, the 3 inductees that we inducted yesterday, their representatives came. And the one gentleman that really stood out in my mind was a gentleman from Bandag Tire, which is a recap company. They were bought out a number of years ago by Bridgestone Firestone. So he came yesterday to accept the award on behalf of Roy Carver, the founder of Bandag. When he walked in, you could just see the facial expression like, wow, what is this? Where did this come from? How does this place even exist? How did I not know about this? Consequently, we had lunch yesterday and then a ceremony afterwards. We're done about 2:15, maybe 2:30 yesterday afternoon. At 4 o'clock, the gentleman's still here. He's going back to Nashville. And I says to Brad, I says, don't you need, he says, listen, there's a plane goes every hour to Nashville. I really want to stay here and look at what you guys have. And that also held true yesterday with the autocar folks. The autocar folks were here. And it's like, where have you guys been all of our lives? We never even heard of you people. And they're so excited once they come here. And that's held true every year that we've had the Hall of Fame ceremony. Even large corporations like Cummins, when we inducted Classy Cummins, the founder of Cummins Engine. When those folks came, and they all come on their corporate jets. I mean, these are somebody in these corporations. They just stand out there and just take it in. They're just at awe.
That's got to feel great.
It is. It is. It's exciting for that. And then we have a lot of school groups come here. A lot of tech schools come over, and they'll look at the displays and they'll go through the literature and things like that. And then just the general public. Somebody will know of us, or they'll see us. We're right along the Interstate 29 here. We have anybody in the Kansas City area has probably seen the building. It's a glass mirrored building that has a Klein truck, a real live Klein truck out in the front lawn there. And Klein trucks were produced here in Kansas City. So anybody that's gone up and down 29 close to the airport here has seen our place. And so people say, what's this all about? Let's just go in here and see what this is. And once they come here, they're usually hooked and can't wait to come back for a second or third visit.
That's great. Let's talk about the Hall of Fame a little bit. And you mentioned, I think, at least one of the honorees that you had at the induction ceremony for this year. And again, the idea is to celebrate and honor pioneers who essentially shaped the trucking industry. Can we just kind of talk about each of the inductees one by one here? And you had, I guess, 4 separate people, 3 separate kind of groups here. And let's just kind of go down the list. You mentioned Roy Carver, the founder of Bandag. Can you talk a little bit about Roy and his contributions, and obviously in the context there, why he was selected to be in the Hall of Fame?
Okay, yes. So Roy Carver, as I understand it, was just a general inventor and all, a real philanthropist. I understand it to be he was from the Iowa area, and I guess one of his trips abroad, he saw a tire retreading process, and it intrigued him. He thought, this looks like something I could get involved with. And so he started this company called Bandag. And they're very successful. It was a recap tire. It's still being marketed today. And it was bought out by, like I say, the Bridgestone Firestone people there. Unfortunately, we could not locate any of the Carver family. We did our best there, so I don't know if it exists or not. But he's been gone for a number of years, so unfortunately he was not able to be here. But we did induct him because he's part of the industry. when you talk about the trucking industry, a lot of people just want to talk about the trucks, the brand of the truck. But it takes a lot of components to make that vehicle go up and down the road. So his tire played a very important part in the trucking industry and still does today.
Yeah, that's great.
Yep. The next person we inducted yesterday was Louis Simple Clark, and he co-founded the auto car company. And once again, at the turn of the century, he was just an inventor. He invented numerous different things, and he was the person that invented the left-hand driving vehicle that we all enjoy today. They were from Ardmore, Pennsylvania, which is over in the Philadelphia area there. And he invented the porcelain and spark plugs, I guess, in my understanding. So I think when these guys started, they were just natural inventors. I don't think they necessarily set out to say, I'm going to invent the auto car truck. I think things just evolved to that point there. So auto car, unfortunately, they kind of fell by the wayside there for a while, but now they're back. They have some new management. They're starting back up again, and so we were very, very excited to have the auto car people here yesterday, and they in turn also were. So the third and fourth people we inducted yesterday was Joseph Morton and his son. And what they were is they started an insurance business and up in the Iowa area, and they were just insurance agents back in the I think, I don't know exactly, but I think it was in the 40s. And they saw a need for truck insurance. They saw that, trucks were becoming prevalent on the highway. Naturally, they were involved in accidents, and trucks cost more money. And how were these people paying to get their trucks repaired? What was the process? So they took it upon themselves to specialize in truck insurance, and they did. Well, then they went on and formed what was called the Great West Casualty Company, which is a major player in truck insurance today. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with them. Well, their representatives were here yesterday. The president of the company was actually here. And once again, he was just in awe. He says, where have you guys been all of our lives, So just to get back to it there, they were inducted. What we do, we have a committee, and everybody throws out some ideas who we think would be a good candidate. And so some of our committee this year, some members came up with these different names. We did some research. We try and do something from a little internal category, in a sense, a support from the support side, which would be like the tire, or the invention side, which would be the auto car vehicle itself. The first year that we were the first person that we inducted, the very first year in 2021, was Dave Nemo. Mm-hmm. And I think you know who Dave Nemo is.
Yeah, we are familiar. Yep.
Yes. And Dave was inducted because of the all-night trucking radio. That was part of the history. It was as important as the vehicle the guy drove. Yeah. That was his communication back home. So we felt that Dave was a good candidate. We have OIDA, who's a candidate because of their support people. We have the Iowa 80, the Moon family, for what they've done up at the world's largest truck stop. So when we sit down, there's a little bit of a process about who should we induct. We have a little internal rule. We try not to induct more than 4. This year we had 3, and previous years we've had 4. So, and we just do that from a control side. So easier to manage if you're only inducting 4 versus inducting 15 or 20. But to be honest with you, when I started this, I went to the Football Hall of Fame, and I went to the Baseball Hall of Fame, and kind of took some pointers from the way they did things. So we're trying to pattern it off of that a little bit, if that makes any sense.
That does make sense. That's interesting. What did you learn from going to them? And again, to kind of go back, because I mentioned presidential libraries. I think you mentioning the Baseball Hall of Fame and the Football Hall of Fame. I think that's also a great example of what you're trying to do, because they are preserving history. They are trying to talk about the ties that bind the historical era from the current era. What did you learn from those trips?
Well, the first thing we learned was what the display should look like. We had no idea. Should it be a plaque? Should it be a trophy? Should it just be wording on the wall? So we learned that they use actual plaques, and they were bronze, and they were mounted against a Korean backdrop and things like that. So we did steal some of those ideas. to make our display look eye-catching and appealing. So we feel comfortable with what we've done there. The other thing we've learned about their process, and their process is that their inductees are nominated from within their example, the Football Hall of Fame. That comes from the teams themselves. Now, we're not in a league like that because we don't have a football team or a baseball team where we can put somebody up, because we're just representing people that have made a difference in the industry. So we're just, in a sense, we're just kind of looking for them. Last year, we inducted a gentleman that I'm trying to look here. He invented the refrigerated trailer. Oh my gosh, what a great deal that was, And nobody'd ever heard of him. In fact, we never had. We knew about Thermo King. Everybody knows a Thermo King trailer. So we thought, well, how did that come about? Well, here it came from a guy by the name of Frederick McKinley Jones. So we learn as we research different companies that we know of, in other words. So when we reached out to Thermo King and said, hey, we want to induct Mr. Jones, and they said, well, yeah, we know who he is, but he's been long gone. So educate us a little bit. So we helped Thermo King learn about their history. When they came out here last year, we inducted Mr. Jones, and Thermo King folks came here. Once again, let me tell you how excited they were. They said, listen, we have something you guys must have. And we said, what is that? They said, we have a 1948 refrigerated Thermo King unit.
Wow.
That's in our warehouse. It's just been collecting dust. We didn't want to throw away, but we want you folks to have it. They brought it out here the next day. They gave it to us. It's on display. But the important thing is our people were able to go back in our archives and get the original sales literature for that 1948 reefer unit.
Wow.
And it's with the display today.
Wow.
So
That is so cool.
Yeah, it is cool.
You're talking about all these people that come in and are, kind of awestruck by what they see. The thing that I think has been reinforced by us talking with you, Tom, is this idea that there is so much history in trucking, and for such a long time, a lot of these people and a lot of these inventions and a lot of these, products, what have you, kind of went just kind of unnoticed or not recognized, I suppose, for just how, big they were in contributing to not just trucking, but obviously society and the growth of America. And you can follow that thread on down the line there. But that's got to give you a good feeling knowing that you are essentially honoring these folks in a lot of cases who hadn't been really talked about before. That's got to be really gratifying and exciting, I assume, for you.
It is. That's what we really enjoy doing. We enjoy doing what I refer to as the hunt. We like to hunt down the history of these people. And sometimes it gets a little, it twists and turns every now and then, And so we're also very pleased that we are able to do something that the current company hasn't had time to do, and that's to expose their history. Since doing some business with us, Cummins has become very involved with their history now. They've started a heritage center of their own in Columbus, Indiana. I mean, not because of us, but we've showed them that history is important. And like I just said, there was Thermo King. They did they had some products there. Another company that we did business with that we inducted was the Earl and Lillian Cogdens, which are the founders of Old Dominion Freight Lines, and everybody's seen Old Dominion trucks. Well, they have a huge display in the North Carolina Transportation Museum. So it's good to see that we're able to help other people bring awareness that they actually do have history. I mentioned earlier, Kenworth, we're doing their archives. Now, surely a company as big as Kenworth had all this stuff archived. Well, they really didn't. And it was just an accident. We bumped into them in Louisville at the Mid-America Show. We have a big timeline wall that we carry around, and it's a visual, and you can look at it, and it tells about how things evolved up to time. And the Kenworth gentleman was standing there, and just so happened that day I was there, and we struck up a conversation. And he told me, he said, "With Kenworth," I says, "Do you folks have anything with you?" He said, "Well, I don't think we do." So now here we are. We've helped them. We're going to archive their history for them. So it's kind of strange how the whole thing evolves. It's just almost like a chance meeting sometime, It's hard to describe.
Kismet, something like that, right?
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah,
there you go.
That's really cool.
We have a nice display here with Walmart. A lot of people don't realize Walmart's had their own trucks for over 50 years on the highway. So we have a nice display here kind of telling about how their trucks evolved to where they are today. And women in trucking, we have a nice display with women in trucking and the history that they have. And in fact, we're involved with the women in trucking to the point at their convention, we present their individuals with 50-year awards. We've given, I think, 2 50-year awards now to women and women in trucking. So we've helped women in trucking recognize their own people. And when you receive an award from ATHS for driving a truck for 50 years, you're actually in the Hall of Fame. Now, you don't have a plaque on the wall because you're not one of the inventors or one of the leaders, but nevertheless, you've played a part. So if you've received a 50-year award from ATHS for driving a truck, if you come here, you can search in our database. You can search the history of yourself or your loved one or whatever the case might be. And so you're actually in the Hall of Fame. So not only are all these big giants in there, but there are over 900 individuals in the Hall of Fame.
That's great.
Wow. Tom, what does the future look like for ATHS? What are the plans going forward?
Well, the plans are just to continue on, is to continue to grow. On the ATHS side, the American Truck Historical Society, of course, we still have our annual convention, and it travels from different locations every year. In 2026, we will be in Springfield, Missouri, at the State Fairgrounds, and our truck show there will have anywhere from 1,000 to 1,400 vintage Class 8 trucks and smaller. So we'll have a big display again this year, a big convention in Springfield. Our magazine's doing well. Like I say, we produce 6 copies a year. It's a great magazine. We've been able to put our backlot, we call it, the for sale section, is now online, and it's searchable. So that helps people buy and sell some of their vintage trucks and things like that. But that magazine's just packed full of history. It's kind of like a trip to the office without coming here. But our future is bright. We don't anticipate anything other than what we're doing now. Just continue to preserve the history of the industry. That's what we're all about.
Keep it going. I'd say what you're doing is working.
Sounds like
working,
it, yeah.
Tom, yeah. ATHS.org is the website to go to for more information. And Tom, people can stop on by during normal business hours, I assume, and come see you or come see all the cool stuff.
Yep, Monday through Friday we're here, with the exception of holidays, of course. But there's no charge to come. You do not have to be a member to come here, but we do encourage you. We'd like you to be a member because there's some great benefits of being a membership, like as an addition to the magazine and the convention and things of that nature. We have a very, very nice. We give 3 scholarships away every year, and it's truck related. We do 3 on our own, and we do 1 in conjunction with Cummins. So it's a great organization. If you have any interest in trucks at all, or if you just want to learn more about trucks, you don't really have to be a truck person, but just come here. Education, as we've all heard, you can never stop learning, and that's what this is. This is a little educational time capsule, I guess.
Mr. President, Tom, we appreciate your time. Enjoyed talking to you.
Yes.
And we'll see you up there at the Hall of Fame here at some point soon.
Oh, okay. Thanks for all you folks do for us. Everybody enjoy their day. Be safe, those of you who are traveling on the roads today. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. Today's episode of Trucking with OOIDA was brought to you by a dedicated team of people. That includes Jim Fetzer, Tennille Flick, and Kim Boren.
You can listen to new episodes and extended interviews on your favorite podcast platform and on the OOIDA YouTube page. Please subscribe while you're there. If you've got thoughts, we'd love to hear them. Call us at 1-800-324-6856 and leave a message, or send us an email to podcast@ooida.com, and we might include it on the show.